He had judged thousands before, but this performance stopped him cold. The Got Talent stage gleamed under cascading spotlights, bathed in blue and red lights that had witnessed dreams born and shattered across countless seasons. The iconic golden logo loomed behind the performance area, its metallic surface catching the warm amber lights that danced across the polished black floor. I saw a young woman who chose her brother's dignity over her own dreams, and then found that in making that choice, she had found something far more valuable than any prize we could give. The footage would be shared millions of times across every social media platform, translated into dozens of languages, and discussed in living rooms around the world. Not because of perfect vocals or stunning choreography, but because for 3 minutes and 47 seconds, the world witnessed something increasingly rare in an age of curated perfection: pure, unconditional love in action. David would later say, in his simple, honest way, that his favorite part wasn't the golden buzzer or the standing ovation or even the confetti that he kept finding in his pockets for weeks afterward. It was the moment his sister knelt down beside him, choosing him over everything else, just like she had every day of his life. "Emma always makes me feel brave," he would tell reporters, and those 5 words would become the title of the documentary that would eventually be made about their story. The performance would change things for both of them, but not in the ways they had originally imagined. Emma would finally understand that she hadn't been sacrificing her dreams for David, she had been living them alongside him all along. And David would learn that his differences weren't obstacles to overcome, but gifts to share. Simon would carry that lesson with him long after the season ended. In quiet moments, he would remember a young woman kneeling beside her brother, choosing love over success, and finding that in that choice she had found. Because true talent isn't about being the best, it's about bringing out the best in others. One note, one moment, one embrace at a time. And sometimes, the greatest victories come not from perfect performances, but from the courage to choose love when the world is watching. Even the camera operators, usually hidden behind their equipment and trained to remain invisible, had tears streaming down their faces as they continued to capture every second of this extraordinary moment. In the audience, Emma and David's parents held each other, 17 years of worry and hope and fierce love culminating in this moment of pure acceptance. Their mother's sobs were audible, even over the applause, but they were tears of joy so profound that everyone who heard them understood immediately. Simon looked at his fellow judges, saw the same wonder in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. This wasn't just entertainment anymore. This was transformation, not just for Emma and David, but for everyone who had witnessed what unconditional love looked like when it was given freely, without expectation, without condition, and then without consulting his fellow judges, without considering ratings or show format or the usual protocols that governed such decisions. Simon reached for his golden buzzer with trembling fingers. The moment his hand hit the button, the theater transformed again. Golden confetti began to fall like rain, catching the stage lights and creating a shower of light and magic. But Emma and David seemed unaware of the spectacle around them. They only had eyes for each other, holding hands in the center of the stage, having accomplished something that went far beyond winning a competition. The confetti caught in David's hair settled on Emma's shoulders, but neither moved to brush it away. They stood together in the golden shower, and everyone watching understood that this moment, this perfect, unscripted moment, was worth more than any trophy, any prize money, any contract that the show could offer. Later, when the cameras had stopped rolling, and the theater had emptied, when the confetti had been swept away, and the lights had dimmed, reporters would ask Simon what made him leave his seat that night. What made him break every protocol? every professional boundary he had maintained for over a decade of television, for two singers who, by traditional standards, hadn't delivered a flawless performance. His answer, when it came, was simple but carried the weight of a man who had just rediscovered something he thought he had lost. That night, I didn't see a performance. I saw what real talent looks like: love without condition, courage without guarantee, and a bond that no stage could ever contain. He wore a crisp white shirt and dark trousers, his hair neatly combed. His eyes darted nervously around the vast space, taking in the overwhelming magnitude of it all, the stage lights creating an almost ethereal glow around his features. In the audience, their family sat clustered together in the third row, their mother dabbing at her eyes with nervous anticipation. "What's your name?" Simon asked, his voice carrying across the silent studio with the authority of someone who had asked this question thousands of times before. "I'm Emma," the young woman replied, her voice steady but soft, carrying the weight of someone who had learned to speak for two. "And this is my brother, David. He's 21. David waved enthusiastically at the audience, his gesture so pure and joyful that scattered applause rippled through the crowd like a gentle wave. In that simple wave was years of Emma teaching him how to greet people, how to be confident, how to never hide who he was. Simon found himself almost smiling, almost. There was something about David's unguarded enthusiasm that cut through the usual pretense of television. "Tell us about yourselves," Simon continued. Emma's voice grew stronger. "David has always loved music. When we were little, I used to sing him to sleep every night. Music is his language, how he expresses things he can't say with words." David beamed at his sister's words, squeezing her hand 3 times. Their secret signal that meant, "I love you, and what will you be performing for us tonight?" Emma's hand tightened around her brother's. "We're going to sing together. David loves music more than anything in the world. He's been practicing for months." The camera captured the moment David's face lit up. At the mention of music, he bounced slightly on his feet, his excitement infectious even from the judges' table. Simon nodded curtly. "Proceed." The opening notes of a gentle ballad filled the theater. "You Raise Me Up," a song Emma had chosen because David knew every word, every note, every breath. Emma began to sing, her voice clear and melodic, carrying the weight of countless lullabies and bedtime songs of years spent encouraging and supporting. Her voice had the quality of someone who had sung not for audiences, but for love. But it was David who transformed the moment. When his part came, his voice, untrained but filled with pure emotion, joined hers in perfect harmony. His voice was different, unique, carrying an authenticity that no amount of training could create. He sang with his whole heart, his face radiant with the joy of doing what he loved most. They sang about love, about family, about never giving up, words that took on deeper meaning coming from them. David's voice wavered occasionally, but his joy was unmistakable. He looked at his sister with such adoration, such trust, that several audience members felt tears forming. This wasn't just a performance, it was a glimpse into a relationship built on unconditional love. The first verse went beautifully. David hit his notes, smiled at the audience, even did a little dance move that Emma had taught him. The judges leaned forward, impressed despite themselves. This was going better than anyone had expected. But then, as they moved into the chorus, something shifted. The stage lights seemed suddenly too bright, the audience too overwhelming. David's voice faltered, his breathing became rapid and shallow, the familiar signs of sensory overload that Emma knew so well began to manifest. His hands started to shake, his eyes darted frantically around the space, searching for something familiar, something safe. Emma saw it happening, had seen it before in countless situations. where the world demanded more than David's nervous system could give. Without hesitation, Emma stopped singing mid-note. The music cut abruptly as the conductor, watching the stage intently, immediately signaled the musicians to stop. The theater fell into complete silence, the kind of silence that makes hearts stop beating, that makes time seem to freeze, that transforms a stage into something sacred. In that moment, the boundaries between performer and audience dissolved completely. David was now trembling, small sounds of distress escaping his lips. His hands covered his ears, his body rocking slightly in self-soothing. The audience held its breath. The judges sat frozen. This wasn't part of the show, but Emma knew exactly what to do. She had always known exactly what to do. She dropped to her knees on the stage, bringing herself to David's eye level. Her arms wrapped around him in the kind of embrace that spoke of years of protection, of bedtime fears calmed, of a love that asked for nothing in return. "It's okay, Davy," she whispered, but the microphones caught every word, carrying her gentle voice to every corner of the theater. "I'm here, we're just singing, remember, like we do at home. Just you and me. Nothing else matters." David's trembling began to subside. His sister's voice, familiar and safe, cut through the chaos in his mind. He lifted his head, looking into her eyes, eyes that had been his anchor through every storm of his life. The camera caught it all, the tenderness, the patience, the pure unconditional love that needed no audience, no stage, no competition. And then something extraordinary happened that would be replayed and discussed for years to come. Simon Cowell stood up. The sudden movement sent ripples through the studio. Producers leaned forward, speaking rapidly into headsets. The other judges turned to look at him with confusion. Simon never left his seat during performances. Never. But as Simon watched Emma's patient love in action, something stirred in him that he hadn't felt in years. It was recognition, a memory of his own younger brother Eric getting lost at a crowded fair years ago, and Simon kneeling down to comfort him until the world felt safe again. In that instant, he saw past the cameras, past the show, past everything that had built walls around his heart. His polished shoes clicked against the stage floor as he walked toward the brother and sister, each step echoing in the silent theater like a judgment being passed. Each step took him further from his role as the tough judge, the sharp-tongued critic who had built his reputation on being brutally honest about talent and potential. Emma looked up as his shadow fell across them, surprise and worry flickering across her face, like clouds passing over the sun. Was he going to stop them, end their dream, send them home, because David couldn't handle the pressure of live television? Instead, Simon knelt down beside them. "David," he said softly, his usually sharp voice gentled to something unrecognizable, "I have a brother too." David looked at Simon with curious eyes, his anxiety beginning to fade in the presence of this unexpected kindness. "And sometimes," Simon continued, "the most beautiful things happen when we're scared. But you're not alone up here. You have Emma, and now you have all of us." Simon gestured to the audience, to the judges, to everyone in that theater. "We're not here to judge you, David. We're here to listen to your music, to your heart." Emma's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. In 17 years of caring for David, of fighting for his acceptance, of watching the world sometimes look away, she had never expected this moment. David looked around the theater again, but now he saw it differently. The lights weren't harsh, they were warm, like the lamp in his bedroom when Emma read to him. The audience wasn't overwhelming. They were friends waiting to hear his song. "Can we try again?" David asked, his voice small but hopeful. Simon smiled, a real smile, not the practiced television version. Of course we can. As Simon returned to his seat, something had shifted in the theater. The audience was no longer watching a performance. They were witnessing something sacred. Emma and David began to sing again. This time, David's voice was stronger, not perfect, but fearless. He sang with unguarded joy, while the audience began to hum along softly, creating a symphony of support. David's face broke into a radiant smile as he noticed the humming, and he began to move naturally as he sang. When they reached the final chorus, Emma took David's hand, and together they sang with voices that carried 17 years of shared dreams and unconditional love. When they finished, the silence lasted exactly 3 heartbeats, long enough for the magnitude of what had just occurred to settle into every heart in that theater. Then the theater erupted in a way that veteran crew members would later say they had never experienced before. The audience rose as one, their applause thunderous and sustained. But more than that, it was different. This wasn't the polite appreciation of a well-executed performance or even the enthusiastic support for a crowd favorite. This was recognition, gratitude, and love pouring out from hundreds of people who had just been reminded of something fundamental about human connection. But more than the applause, they were crying, openly, unashamed, without the self-consciousness that usually kept emotions in check during public gatherings. The judges were on their feet, and even the other panelists who had built their careers on maintaining professional composure found themselves wiping away tears. In the audience, hundreds of faces turned toward the stage in anticipation, their collective breath creating an electric silence that only live television could generate. The familiar energy of possibility hung in the air like a living thing. Simon Cowell sat rigid in his chair, fingers drummed against the mahogany table. His dark suit was pristine under the studio lights, every detail calculated for the cameras that never stopped rolling. The familiar weight of expectation pressed down on the judging panel. Another audition, another hopeful soul stepping into the spotlight. Another decision that would change someone's life in 30 seconds or less. But tonight felt different. From the wings emerged a figure that made the audience lean forward. A young woman, perhaps 23, walked onto the stage with careful, measured steps. Her simple blue dress moved gently as she walked, but it wasn't her appearance that captured attention. It was the way she held the hand of the person beside her, with the protective gentleness of someone who had spent years being another person's anchor. A young man, clearly her brother, walked with a distinctive gait and facial features of Down syndrome. His smile was radiant, genuine, and completely unguarded, the kind of smile that reminded everyone what pure joy looked like.